The road stretched out before me like a ribbon of black glass, the headlights of my old sedan cutting just enough of a path to remind me where the world ended and where the dark began. It was nearly midnight, and I had just finished another long shift at the office. The kind of shift where the hum of the fluorescent lights lingered in my head even after I left the building, where coffee had long stopped working, and all I wanted was to sink into my bed and forget about deadlines, clients, and numbers. The town was quiet at this hour. Houses I passed had their porch lights dimmed, curtains drawn. A few neon signs buzzed faintly in the distance, advertising 24-hour diners and gas stations, but I didn't plan on stopping. I wanted home, silence, rest. My hands gripped the steering wheel loosely, the low hum of the engine almost lulling me into a trance. That's when I noticed them, headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Cars passed by now and then, even at this hour. But this one stayed close. Too close. The beam from the headlights filled my mirror, glaring into my tired eyes. I frowned, adjusting in my seat. "All right, buddy, pass me already?" I muttered to myself, expecting the car to swing around me at the next straight stretch of road. But it didn't. It matched my pace, keeping steady just a few car lengths behind me. A nervous ripple ran through me. My grip on the wheel tightened. I wasn't the type to get spooked easily, but something about the persistence of those headlights gnawed at me. The stretch of road was deserted, trees pressing in on either side, and suddenly the night didn't feel as calm as it had moments ago. Finally, with a slight curve in the road, the car sped up. My pulse quickened as the vehicle pulled up beside me, lights flashing once, twice. I turned my head, and my heart stopped. It was my boss. Even through the windshield, even in the dim light, I knew it was him. His familiar jawline, his hand gesturing for me to pull over. Confusion and unease tangled inside me. Why would he be out here? Why was he flagging me down on a lonely road this late at night? Had I done something wrong at work? Was there some emergency? My instincts told me to keep driving, to pretend I hadn't seen him. But his eyes caught mine, firm and insistent. Against my better judgment, I slowed and eased my car onto the gravel shoulder. Dust rose in the beams of our headlights as he pulled in right behind me. I sat there, the engine idling, my pulse thudding loud in my ears. He stepped out of his car and approached mine, his figure tall and commanding against the wash of lights. I rolled down the window, the cool night air rushing in with the sound of crickets and the faint rustle of trees. "Hey," he said, his voice low, almost too calm. "Get out for a moment." I blinked at him, startled. "Sir? Is everything okay?" His lips curved into something between a smile and a secret. "Just get out. I want to talk." Hesitation gripped me. Every instinct screamed that this was unusual, that bosses didn't follow employees home just to chat. Still, something about his tone, authoritative yet oddly vulnerable, pulled at me. I killed the engine and stepped out. Gravel crunched beneath my shoes, the night wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. He moved closer, his cologne faint but distinct in the cool air. The headlights behind him painted his face in sharp relief, shadows deepening his features. "You've been working late a lot," he said quietly, his gaze never leaving mine. "Yeah," I murmured, suddenly hyper-aware of how small my voice sounded. "Just catching up." He nodded slowly, then leaned in closer than I expected. His words dropped to a whisper. "No one's here." The sentence hung between us, strange, almost heavy with meaning I couldn't decipher. My breath caught. The world felt impossibly still. No passing cars, no sounds but the quiet chorus of insects and the thud of my own heartbeat. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice tight. He searched my face, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I couldn't tell if this was danger or something else entirely. Desire. That word flickered in my mind. Unwelcome but undeniable. His eyes softened, but his posture stayed firm, like he was holding something back. Something he wasn't supposed to say. Something I wasn't supposed to hear. And there I stood, caught between instinct and curiosity, fear and longing. I didn't know if I should step back into my car and drive away, or lean closer and finally discover what he truly meant. But one thing was certain. That night, on that empty road, nothing felt simple anymore. For a long moment, we just stood there on the shoulder of that empty road, the silence stretching until it became unbearable. His words, "No one's here," kept replaying in my head like an echo I couldn't outrun. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath, but before I could ask anything more, he leaned closer and said, almost in a whisper, "Follow me, to my farmhouse. We can talk there." I blinked, staring at him in disbelief. 100 questions rushed through me at once. Why the farmhouse? Why me? Why now? He had a wife waiting at home, or so I thought. He had a life that seemed as polished and complete as the corner office he commanded. "Sir," my voice faltered. "It's late. Shouldn't you be heading back home?" Something flickered across his expression, a mix of hesitation and boldness. Then he said firmly, "Just follow me, please." The please disarmed me. I had never heard him ask me for anything. He was a man who gave orders, not requests. Before I could protest again, he turned and walked back to his car. The red glow of his taillights flared as he started his engine. I stood frozen for a moment, my heart hammering, before I found myself climbing back into my car and pulling out after him. The drive was short but felt like forever. My mind was a storm. He's married. He's my boss. This isn't right. But tangled up with those warnings was another, quieter voice I didn't want to admit. I want to know what this means. I want to see where this goes. He led me off the main road, down a narrow lane lined with tall oaks. The farmhouse came into view, a 2-story structure with peeling white paint and a wraparound porch. It looked old, worn but dignified, sitting apart from the world as if it kept its own secrets. He pulled into the gravel drive and cut the engine. I followed suit, the crunch of tires on stone loud in the otherwise still night. When I stepped out, the silence pressed even heavier here. No traffic, no hum of city lights, just the chirp of crickets and the faint whisper of wind through the trees. The farmhouse loomed in the darkness, its windows unlit except for a single lamp glowing faintly inside. He waited by the steps, watching me with an intensity that made my stomach twist. I walked toward him slowly, every step a mixture of dread and anticipation. "Why am I here?" I asked softly once I reached him. His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might send me away, laugh it off as some strange joke. But then he exhaled heavily and said the words I never expected. "Because I can't hide it anymore." His voice trembled just enough to betray his control. "I've wanted you for a long time, longer than I should admit." My chest tightened, a rush of shock and disbelief flooding me. I stared at him, at the man I had always thought was untouchable, untouchably straight. "You're married," I blurted out. "Yes." His reply was immediate, raw. "And I shouldn't be. Not to her. That marriage, it was what my family wanted, not me. I thought I could live that way forever. But..." He broke off, his eyes locking onto mine. "I see you, and I can't pretend anymore." The world spun beneath me. I wanted to step back, to remind him of the lines we weren't supposed to cross. But instead, I stood frozen, heat prickling up my neck. My voice shook. "I thought you were straight." His laugh was bitter, almost self-mocking. "So did I. Or maybe I just wanted to believe it. But the truth is, every time I looked at you, I knew I wasn't." The night seemed to hold its breath. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the warmth radiating off him. For the first time since I'd known him, he didn't look like my boss, the powerful man who barked orders and ran the office with iron precision. He looked like someone stripped bare, a man who wanted something he had been starving himself of for too long. The farmhouse door creaked as he pushed it open. He didn't have to ask me to follow. My feet carried me in, though my heart pounded so loud it almost drowned out everything else. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and old wood. The furniture was simple. A sagging couch, a solid oak table, books stacked in corners as though he'd been trying to fill the silence of this place with something tangible. He closed the door behind us. For a long beat, we just stood there, the tension coiling tighter and tighter. Then, softly, he reached for my hand. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Stay. The word was quiet, but it landed with weight. My hesitation trembled inside me. He's my boss, he's married. This is a risk I can't control. But desire rose to meet it, undeniable and fierce. I had admired him from afar, convinced he was untouchable, handsome in a way that made me ache. And now he was here, asking me not to leave. When he leaned in, his lips brushed mine, hesitant, searching, as if he needed permission. My breath caught, but I didn't pull away. The warmth of his mouth melted something inside me I had kept locked away for too long. We kissed again, deeper this time, and all the conflict inside me blurred into something raw and consuming. The farmhouse walls held our secrets as his arms wrapped around me. Clothes became a blur, his hands trembling slightly, mine gripping tighter as fear and hunger collided. The night outside pressed against the windows, but here inside, the world felt narrowed to just us. Just this. When we finally gave in, it wasn't rough or careless. It was years of silence breaking open, of secrets spilling into the quiet night. A long fade into warmth, into a closeness neither of us had admitted we craved. Later, when the room was still again, I lay there staring at the ceiling beams, the weight of what had happened settling over me. My hesitation was gone, replaced by something far more complicated. Desire, yes, but also fear. Fear of what it meant now that the line between us had shattered. Fear of what would happen if anyone, especially his wife, found out. I turned to look at him. He was watching me quietly, as if waiting for me to regret everything. But I didn't. Not yet. The room was still, but my pulse wasn't. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might echo off the wooden beams above us. The farmhouse smelled faintly of cedar smoke and dust, the kind of scent that clung to your skin and made everything feel heavier than it should. He lay beside me, breathing evenly but staring into the shadows as if searching for words that refused to come. I shifted, uncertain whether I should break the silence or let it stretch. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and deliberate. No one can know about this. The words hit me with a finality that made my chest tighten. He turned his head toward me, eyes dark, unreadable. You understand, don't you? If she finds out, if anyone finds out, it could ruin everything. I nodded automatically, though the gesture felt like a lie tugging at my throat. Yeah, I get it. But inside, a storm churned. I felt a rush of exhilaration, his touch, his kiss, his admission that he wanted me. Yet guilt coiled sharp around it. His wife, his home, his life built on another foundation. And me slipping in like a shadow. I sat up slightly, pulling the thin blanket over my bare shoulders. It's not just about me. She's your wife. His jaw clenched. He pushed himself up on one elbow, the lamplight catching the lines of his face. She's my wife because my family insisted, because it was easier to do what they wanted than fight it. I thought I could live that lie forever, but... He broke off, shaking his head, running a hand through his hair. But then you came along. I swallowed hard. His words shouldn't have warmed me, but they did. Do you have any idea? He said, his voice rough. How long I've been holding this in? How many times I've had to look at you in the office and pretend I didn't feel anything. Pretend I wasn't noticing everything about you. My throat went dry. I wanted to ask, what exactly do you notice? But I was too afraid of the answer. Instead, I whispered, you always seemed so untouchable, like you had it all figured out. He gave a humorless laugh. Untouchable? No, just lonely. You can have the job, the house, the wife, and still be starving for something real. And when you walked into my life, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Loneliness. That word carried a weight I hadn't expected. I studied him in the dim glow of the lamp. The confident man who commanded boardrooms and managed crises with ease looked vulnerable, stripped down to something raw and human. And for reasons I couldn't explain, it made me want him more. But the guilt clawed its way back in. I don't want to be someone's secret, I murmured, my voice barely above the creak of the old farmhouse walls. I don't want to feel like I'm betraying someone else. His hand reached for mine, warm and trembling just slightly. You're not betraying anyone. If anyone's guilty, it's me. I was the coward who hid behind expectations. You. His gaze locked onto mine, fierce, pleading. You're the first thing I've done for myself in years. My chest tightened at the intensity of his words. I wanted to believe him, to drown in the thrill of being chosen, wanted. But doubt whispered in the back of my mind. What if this ruins me? What if it ruins him? We sat there in the heavy silence, his thumb brushing across my knuckles, the farmhouse pressing in around us like a witness. Excitement and guilt battled inside me, neither strong enough to silence the other. My body still burned from his touch. My mind still reeled from the confession I never imagined hearing. But underneath it all was the echo of his first words. No one can know. That truth dug into me like a splinter. Promise me, he said suddenly, his voice sharp with desperation. Promise me you'll keep this between us. I hesitated, then whispered back, I promise. The words tasted bitter, but they also thrilled me in a way I didn't want to admit. A secret, dangerous, and intoxicating. He exhaled, relief washing over his face. Good, because I can't lose you. Not now. I turned away, staring at the window where the night pressed in, endless and dark. I thought of his wife, asleep in their bed, oblivious to the storm unraveling here. My stomach twisted, guilt curling around me like barbed wire. But then he leaned against me, his head resting on my shoulder, and the weight of his needs softened something inside me. He wasn't my boss in that moment. He wasn't a husband betraying his vows. He was just a man who wanted, a man who had been caged by everyone else's expectations and was now finally reaching for what he desired. And I was part of that desire. I should have felt trapped. Instead, I felt chosen. Still, the whisper of guilt never vanished. It hovered, sharp and constant, reminding me that no secret stays buried forever. But for now, in that quiet farmhouse with the crickets outside and his hand still wrapped around mine, I pushed the doubt aside. For now, I let myself believe that being wanted was enough. The days that followed blurred into something both intoxicating and terrifying. At the office, everything looked the same on the surface. He was still my boss. I was still his employee. Deadlines still piled up like bricks on a wall. But beneath it all was the weight of what we had done, what we continued to do whenever the chance arose. We lived in the shadows. A brush of his hand against mine in the elevator, a glance that lasted 1 second too long during meetings, late nights when I followed him back to that farmhouse and we shut the world out. It was reckless, dangerous, and I couldn't deny the thrill that ran through me every time I heard his voice lower to that quiet, wanting tone. But secrets don't stay silent forever. It began with small things. His wife started showing up at the office more often, her visits thinly veiled as casual drop-ins. She lingered in the lobby, eyes sharp and searching. I'd catch her watching me sometimes, her gaze sticking like a thorn in my side. When she smiled, it never reached her eyes. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was paranoid. But unease shadowed me all the same. One evening, as I was gathering my things to leave, I heard the click of heels behind me. I turned, and there she was, his wife, standing in the doorway of my office with her arms crossed. Leaving late again? Her voice was light, almost casual, but her eyes burned with something far darker. I swallowed, forcing a polite smile. Yes, ma'am. Just finishing up. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The sound of it shutting felt final, like a trap being sprung. Funny, she said, pacing slowly across the room. My husband's been working late too. Almost every night, in fact. My stomach tightened. I opened my mouth to respond, but she held up a hand, cutting me off. Don't play innocent with me. Her tone sharpened, her mask slipping. I know what's going on. Blood roared in my ears. I don't. Don't lie, she snapped, her voice slicing through the air. You think I haven't seen it? The way he looks at you? The excuses, the sudden nights away? Do you think I'm blind? I felt my knees weaken, my throat dry as ash. You stole him, she hissed, stepping closer, her face twisted with fury. You wormed your way into his life and took what was mine. My husband. My family. I didn't. My voice cracked. It wasn't like that. He what? Chose you. Her laugh was sharp, bitter, like glass breaking. Do you think that makes it better? Do you think that absolves you? Her eyes narrowed, her face inches from mine now. I'll destroy you for this. Do you hear me? I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me. Terror surged through me, raw and paralyzing. For the first time, I realized just how dangerous the secret had become. It wasn't just about hushed kisses and stolen nights anymore. It was about lives, marriages, reputations. And now I was squarely in her sights. She turned on her heel, leaving the office as suddenly as she had entered, the door slamming behind her. I stood frozen, the echo of her words ringing in my head. I'll destroy you. That night, I drove to the farmhouse with my hands trembling on the wheel. He was already there, waiting on the porch, his face tightening as soon as he saw me. What happened? He asked, stepping forward, his hand brushing my arm. She knows? I whispered, the words spilling out in a rush. She confronted me. She threatened me. She said she'll ruin me. His expression darkened, his jaw set hard. I told you this would happen eventually. I can't keep lying to her anymore. I stared at him, fear and disbelief tangling in my chest. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time, he said firmly, his eyes locking on mine. I can't live like this, sneaking around, pretending. I'm going to tell her. I'm going to end it. My breath caught. You mean, divorce? He nodded slowly. Yes, it should have happened years ago. I thought I could endure it, keep up the image my family wanted. But I can't. Not anymore. Not with you. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing along my jaw with a tenderness that nearly undid me. I need you to know this isn't just some fling, some rebellion. You're what I want. You're who I want. And I won't let her or anyone take that away. Tears pricked at my eyes, though I blinked them back. She's furious. She's not just going to let you walk away. Then she'll fight, he said quietly. But so will I. The weight of his words pressed down on me, both terrifying and exhilarating. The secret was no longer just between us. The darkness that had hidden us was splitting open, spilling everything into the light. I thought of his wife's face, twisted with rage, her voice sharp with venom. I thought of the life he had built with her, a marriage propped up by lies and family expectation. And I thought of us, fragile, dangerous, but real. I don't want to lose you, I whispered. You won't, he said, his voice steady, resolute. Not now. Not ever. And for the first time since that night on the empty road, I believed him. The next few weeks were a blur of tension stretched thin across every part of my life. At work, whispers started to spread. His wife stopped coming by the office, but her absence felt more dangerous than her presence. It was like the air before a storm, heavy, waiting to break. Then, one night in the farmhouse, he told me, I filed the papers today. I stared at him, my breath caught halfway between relief and terror. Divorce papers? He nodded, his eyes steady even though his voice was low. It's time. I can't keep pretending. She deserves honesty, even if it destroys her illusions. And I deserve a life where I'm not hiding. The words filled me with a strange warmth, but also dread. I wanted this. I wanted him free with me, but I also knew the fury his wife carried in her eyes the last time I saw her. She won't take this quietly, I whispered. No, he admitted. She won't. But it doesn't matter. I've chosen you. Those words should have felt like salvation. In many ways, they did. But they also rang like a bell calling danger closer. The danger arrived soon enough. She began calling me, late at night, her voice trembling with rage. You think you've won? You think you can just take him from me? Each call ended with threats sharper than the last. Once, she showed up outside my apartment, banging on the door, screaming that she would make me pay. My neighbors peeked through their blinds, but no one dared intervene. I told him about it, fear written all over me. He pulled me into his arms, jaw clenched with resolve. She's losing control. That's why I have to end this quickly. Still, nothing prepared me for the night it all came to a head. I was leaving work late again, the office dark and quiet behind me. The parking lot was mostly empty, my footsteps echoing as I crossed toward my car. My hands were full with my bag, my mind replaying the events of the past weeks. That's when I heard the sharp click of heels behind me. I turned and froze. It was her. Her eyes burned with a fury that made my blood run cold. In her hand, glinting under the harsh light of the lamppost, was something metallic. A knife. You ruined everything, she spat, stepping closer. Her voice was shaking, not with weakness, but with something unhinged. You stole my husband, you destroyed my life. Do you know what that feels like? My throat tightened. It wasn't me. He made his choice. Liar! She screamed, lunging a step forward. The knife caught the light, sharp and unforgiving. If you hadn't tempted him, if you hadn't poisoned him. Stop! My voice cracked, my hands raised in a useless gesture of defense. I never wanted to hurt you. You think words will save you? She hissed, her face twisted with rage. You'll pay for what you did to me. I backed up, heart pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. My back hit the cold steel of a car, trapping me. Panic clawed through me, but before she could step closer, headlights flared across the lot. His car. He jumped out, his shout slicing through the night. Drop it. Now. She turned toward him, her grip on the knife trembling. You can't leave me for him. I won't let you. Put it down, he barked, stepping between us, shielding me. His body trembled, but his voice was unyielding. This ends tonight. She let out a guttural cry and raised the knife again, but the sudden blare of a siren cut through the chaos. Blue and red lights spilled across the asphalt as a patrol car screeched to a stop. 2 officers rushed forward, their commands sharp and practiced. Drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. For a moment, she looked as if she might resist, but then the knife clattered to the ground, her sobs breaking through the fury. The officers moved quickly, cuffing her as she wailed, her voice cracking with grief and rage. He's mine. You can't take him from me. I stood frozen, shaking so violently I thought my legs might give out. He reached for me, pulling me against his chest as the officers led her away. It's over, he murmured, his hand rubbing slow circles on my back. She can't hurt you anymore. But my body didn't stop trembling until long after the police car disappeared into the night. Later, back at the farmhouse, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the floor. The weight of what had happened pressed on me like a stone. I never wanted this, I whispered. I never wanted to be the reason her world shattered. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his. His eyes were fierce, unwavering. Listen to me. You didn't destroy her marriage. I did. I was the one who made the choice, not you. Don't carry a guilt that doesn't belong to you. His words sank in slowly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. For weeks, guilt had gnawed at me, telling me I was the thief, the intruder, the one who broke vows that weren't mine to break. But looking into his eyes now, I finally believed what I had been too afraid to admit. It wasn't my fault. She had been a victim of lies long before I stepped into the picture. And he had been a prisoner of expectations, living a life that wasn't his own. Now the lies were finished. I exhaled deeply, the first real breath I had taken in what felt like forever. So, what happens now? His lips curved into a small, weary smile. Now we start over. Together. That night, as I lay in his arms, the farmhouse quiet around us, I felt the guilt begin to loosen its grip. It hadn't been me who destroyed anything. If anything, I had simply been the spark that forced the truth into the open. And for the first time, I believed I deserved the happiness waiting on the other side. The farmhouse felt different after that night. The silence was no longer heavy with secrets or fear. Felt open, safe, like the walls themselves had been holding their breath and finally exhaled. He was officially free now. The divorce papers were filed, his wife no longer in the picture except for the chaos she had left behind. For the first time since this had all begun, there were no shadows hanging over us. No lies to hide behind. No guilty glances exchanged at work. No hurried goodbyes in parking lots. Just us. I sat at the kitchen table one evening, the warm glow of the lamp spilling across the wood. He poured us both a glass of wine, his movements slower, calmer than I'd ever seen before. Without the weight of pretense, he seemed lighter. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. I smiled faintly, clinking mine against his. To finally being honest. We drank in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that felt comfortable instead of suffocating. My eyes lingered on him, on the curve of his jaw, the strength in his shoulders, the way his gaze softened when it landed on me. For so long, I had admired him from afar, telling myself he was untouchable. Now, here he was, across the table, not only touchable but mine. After a while, he set his glass down and leaned back in his chair, studying me with a strange intensity. There's something I need to tell you, he said slowly. My heart skipped. What is it? He looked down, almost shy, and for a moment I hardly recognized him. This was the man who commanded boardrooms with confidence, who made decisions that changed lives with a single word. But now he seemed vulnerable, like he was standing at the edge of something fragile. I've always wanted this, he said softly, but not the way you might think. I spent my whole life being in control, giving orders, holding everything together. With my family, with my wife, at work, it was always about being strong, about leading. But with you, his voice faltered, then steadied. With you, I don't want to be that man. Not here. Not with us. I leaned forward, my chest tightening. What do you mean? He met my gaze, and the honesty in his eyes nearly undid me. I want to let go. I want you to take the lead. I want to be the one who follows, the one who gives instead of takes. This is who I've always been deep down, but I never had the chance to admit it. Not to anyone. Not until you. The words washed over me, heavy with confession but also liberating. For a moment I couldn't speak. My mind raced back over every moment we'd shared, every touch, every kiss. And suddenly, it all made sense. The hesitation, the way he sometimes trembled when I reached for him, the quiet surrender in his eyes. I swallowed hard, my voice thick. You don't know how long I've wanted that too. From the very first moment I saw you, I wanted you, not just as my boss, not as some untouchable figure, but as mine. And the thought of you, giving yourself to me, I broke off, heat rising in my chest. It's everything I didn't even know I needed. He exhaled slowly, relief flickering across his face. We stood almost at the same time, the space between us closing until I could feel his breath against my lips. My hands slid to his waist, steadying him, grounding myself. He leaned into me, not as the man who had once terrified me with his authority, but as someone laying himself bare, surrendering the last mask he had left. I'm yours, he whispered, if you'll have me this way. I kissed him then, slow and deliberate, pouring every unspoken word into the press of our mouths. His body softened against mine, his hands clinging instead of commanding, his breath catching in a way that made my chest ache with tenderness. When we finally moved toward the bedroom, it wasn't with the reckless desperation of before. It was something deeper, an intimacy built not on secrecy, but on truth. Clothes fell away, not in hurried chaos but in deliberate surrender. His eyes never left mine, even when his cheeks flushed, even when his breath shivered. And when the moment came, it wasn't about power or dominance. It was about trust, about him finally allowing himself to be what he'd always wanted to be, and about me finally stepping into the role I had craved without ever daring to admit it. The world narrowed to the sound of his voice, the feel of his hands gripping mine, the raw honesty between us. There were no masks, no roles forced upon us by others. Only the ones we chose. The farmhouse walls, once burdened by secrecy, now bore witness to something new, something real. When it was over, we lay tangled together, his head against my chest, my fingers brushing idly through his hair. The quiet was different now, not heavy or haunted, but warm. He let out a soft, almost disbelieving laugh. Do you realize how long I've dreamed of this? Not the farmhouse, not the wine, not even the freedom. Just this. You. Like this. I kissed the top of his head, my chest tightening with something fierce and protective. You don't have to dream anymore. This is real. We're real. His arm tightened around me, and for the first time, I felt the truth of it settle in me without guilt, without fear. We had found the life we wanted. Not the one built by family expectations, not the one painted for appearances, but the one carved from honesty, trust, and desire. And as the night wrapped around us, I knew we didn't need anything else. Time has a way of softening memories. What once felt like chaos now seems like a distant echo, a storm I weathered to find clearer skies. Months have passed since the night everything changed. The divorce was finalized quietly, with less drama than we feared. His ex-wife's threats had been silenced the moment the police intervened, and while she still tried to stir the waters here and there, her grip on him and on me was gone. Now, the farmhouse that once held our secrets has become our home. The porch creaks beneath our feet in the mornings when we sit with coffee, watching the mist lift off the fields. The kitchen smells like burnt toast more often than not because he insists on cooking but can't quite master the toaster. The walls, once silent witnesses to our guilt, now echo with laughter, with music, with the sound of two lives lived openly. For the first time, there's no need to hide. He's not my boss anymore, not in the way he used to be. At work, he stepped down from his role, passing the torch with a grace that surprised even him. I want a life, not just a job, he told me one night, sipping wine on the porch. For the first time, I finally know who I want to spend it with. Hearing that, I realized how far we'd both come. The man who once lived in the shadow of family expectations was now free. And me, the nervous employee who once thought of him as unreachable, was now his partner in every sense. I remember one evening, months into our new life, when he came in from the fields, dirt on his hands, sweat on his brow, and collapsed into a chair with a grin that looked younger than I'd ever seen it. You know, he said, tugging me onto his lap, I never imagined happiness would look like this. Like what? I teased, brushing a smudge of dirt from his cheek. He smiled, eyes soft. Like quiet, like honesty, like waking up every morning next to the only person I've ever truly loved. Those words sank deep, grounding me in a way nothing else ever had. Because he wasn't just saying them, he meant them. Every day proved it. There were still challenges, of course. Whispers from old friends, raised eyebrows from extended family, the occasional awkward encounter at the grocery store. But those moments no longer shook us. They were ripples against the surface of something much stronger, much steadier. I used to think love was supposed to be easy, free of complications. But now I know it's the opposite. Real love demands honesty, courage, the willingness to face storms together. And we had done just that. At night, lying beside him, I often thought back to that first drive home. The headlights in my mirror, the nervousness that twisted in my stomach. The moment he leaned in and whispered, "No one's here." Back then, it felt like danger, like a secret I didn't know if I wanted. Now, I realize it was an invitation, not to ruin, not to guilt, but to freedom, to truth, to us. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in streaks of orange and pink, we sat on the porch steps together. His head rested against my shoulder, my arm wrapped around him. The world was quiet, except for the chirp of crickets and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. He sighed contentedly. You know, sometimes I wonder what my life would have been if I hadn't stopped you that night on the road. I chuckled softly. You probably would have gone home, poured yourself a drink, and pretended everything was fine. And you? He asked, turning his face up to me. I thought about it for a moment, staring at the horizon. I would have kept driving, straight home, straight into the same lonely routine. And I never would have known what I was missing. He kissed my shoulder, his voice warm against my skin. Then I'm glad I stopped you. I smiled, leaning into him. So am I. As the stars emerged overhead, I let myself reflect one last time. I had once thought I was just a tired employee driving home late, eager for rest and nothing more. But that night, my life shifted course. That night, I was pulled not into trouble, but into love. And now, with his hand entwined with mine, his laughter echoing through the farmhouse, and his heart finally free, I know the truth. I thought I was just driving home that night, but really, I was driving toward the life I always dreamed of.